Welcome to a full-length WolfWhisper Romance audiobook, an alpha story you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 1: The Wedding That Never Happened. The room smelled faintly of roses and hairspray. Angela sat in front of the mirror, completely still. For a moment, she didn't look like herself. The white dress hugged her perfectly, delicate lace resting against her skin, the soft veil falling behind her like something out of a dream. Her long chestnut brown hair was styled in soft waves, framing a face that carried a quiet, natural beauty. Nothing loud, nothing demanding, but something that stayed with you. Her hazel eyes, warm yet deep, were fixed on her reflection, as if she was trying to recognize the girl staring back at her. Because today, she was supposed to become someone new. A bride, a wife, a forever. And yet, her eyes held something fragile, like happiness she didn't fully trust. Behind her, her mother Meera moved around nervously, adjusting the veil for what must have been the 10th time. "Wait, no? It's slipping again," Meera murmured, her fingers carefully fixing it, as if perfection could protect this moment from anything going wrong. Angela let out a soft breath, barely moving. "Mom, it's fine." Meera didn't stop. Her hands lingered on Angela's shoulders, smoothing invisible creases. "You look perfect, honey. Absolutely perfect." Her voice trembled slightly, heavy with emotion, like she had already lived this moment in her heart 100 times. Angela met her mother's eyes in the mirror. For a second, something warm flickered in her chest, a quiet, fragile happiness. "Thanks," she whispered. From the doorway, her younger brother Ethan leaned casually against the frame, arms crossed, watching everything with a crooked grin. "Still time to run, you know." Angela's lips curved faintly, the smallest hint of her old self breaking through. "Shut up," Ethan chuckled. "Just saying, marriage is basically a lifetime contract." "Get out," Meera snapped, though there was no real anger behind it. He raised his hands in surrender but didn't move. Near the door, her father, Daniel, stood quietly. He hadn't said a word. His presence was steady, grounded, the kind of man who didn't speak much but saw everything. His eyes rested on Angela, filled with pride, but also something heavier, something unspoken. Angela caught that look for a second, then looked away. Her gaze dropped to her lap, then slowly shifted to the mirror again, then to the phone resting beside her. She reached for it, unlocked it, checked the screen. Nothing, no new messages. Her thumb hovered for a second, then she locked it again. A breath, a pause, then again. Unlock. Check. Still nothing. Meera noticed. "He's probably just busy with the arrangements. You know how these things get." Angela nodded. "Yeah, probably." But something inside her didn't settle. It wasn't fear, not yet, just a quiet restlessness. Her fingers tightened slightly around the phone. Angela had always been like this, someone who felt deeply, loved deeply, believed in things most people had stopped believing in. Love, forever, promises that actually meant something. And Mitchell? He had been her everything. A memory slipped in. Mitchell's voice, warm, certain. "I'm never leaving you, Angela. Ever." She could still see the way he had looked at her when he said it, like she was enough, like she was his future. Her lips softened at the memory, and just like that, her phone rang. Her heart skipped. Mitchell calling. A smile spread across her face instantly, relief washing through her. "See?" Meera said softly behind her. "Told you." Angela answered quickly, lifting the phone to her ear. "Where are you? Everyone's waiting." For a second, nothing. Just silence. Her smile faltered slightly. "Mitchell?" Then his voice came, flat, distant. "Yeah, about that." Something in her chest tightened. "I'm not coming." Everything inside her stopped. The room didn't move. The air didn't move. Even her breath paused halfway. Angela blinked as if she hadn't heard him properly. "What do you mean?" Her voice came out soft, fragile. "You're not coming." There was no hesitation on his end, no regret. "I'm marrying someone else." The words landed clean, sharp, final. Angela's fingers trembled. "What?" "It's better for my future," he continued, like he was explaining something reasonable. "This makes more sense." Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Her mind scrambled, trying to catch up, trying to make sense of something that refused to make sense. "You're joking, right?" she whispered. "Please say yes. Please laugh. Please take it back." But he didn't. "Grow up, Angela," he said, his tone colder now. "This is how life works." Something inside her broke, quietly, completely. And then the call ended. The line went dead. Angela stared at her phone, unmoving. The screen dimmed, then went black. Her fingers loosened, the phone slipped from her hand. It hit the floor with a dull sound. Around her, the room started to blur. Voices became distant, muffled, like she was underwater. Angela? Marina's voice, closer now, panicked. What happened? Angela's lips moved. It took everything in her just to form the words. He's not coming. The sentence barely existed. It was more breath than sound. Silence filled the room, heavy, unreal. Somewhere beside her, the small velvet ring box tipped over from the table, the ring slipping out, hitting the floor and rolling just slightly before stopping. Angela's eyes followed it, distant, empty. Her vision blurred completely. Her body swayed. Angela? Marina rushed forward. But it was too late. Angela collapsed. The white of her dress spread across the floor, perfect, untouched, and completely meaningless. Her wedding ended before it ever began. Chapter 2: The Alpha's Heir. The Victoria Hotel stood like a symbol of power, glass walls reflecting the morning sun, polished floors gleaming under golden lights, and an atmosphere that carried quiet authority. Everything about it spoke of control, wealth, and perfection. People didn't just walk into the Victoria. They adjusted themselves before stepping inside. And the moment Kai Thornfield entered, the air shifted. Conversations lowered, movements straightened. Eyes followed him, but no one dared to stare too long. He walked through the lobby with slow, measured steps, his presence commanding without effort. At 6'6", Kai wasn't just tall, he was imposing. His broad shoulders filled out the tailored black suit perfectly, every movement controlled, deliberate. His face carried sharp definition, a strong jawline, high cheekbones, and eyes that held something deeper than they revealed. A cold steel gray, almost unreadable. But if someone looked closely enough, there was something else beneath it. Something restless, something dangerous. He didn't acknowledge anyone, didn't need to. Respect followed him naturally. As the elevator doors closed behind him, the quiet hum of the lobby faded, replaced by something heavier, more personal. The doors opened to the executive floor. Kai stepped out and walked straight into his father's office. The scent of alcohol hit first. Behind the large wooden desk sat Kellen Thornfield, his father, a man who once carried the same power Kai now struggled to claim. His presence was still strong but worn at the edges. A glass of whiskey rested in his hand, half empty or half forgotten. Kellen didn't look up immediately. He took a slow sip. Then, "You think you're ready to become the Alpha?" His voice was calm, too calm. Kai stood across from him, shoulders squared, jaw tight. "I'm trying, Dad." Kellen let out a quiet laugh, not amused, not proud, just dismissive. "Trying," he repeated, shaking his head slightly. "Trying isn't enough." Finally, his eyes lifted, cold, evaluating. "You're not capable." The words landed without hesitation, without softness. Kai didn't react immediately, but his jaw tightened, his fingers curled slightly at his sides. For a moment, the room held nothing but silence, heavy, pressing. Kellen leaned back in his chair, swirling the drink in his glass like the conversation bored him. "I built everything you see," he continued. "Power isn't inherited, Kai. It's taken." Kai held his gaze for a second longer, then turned, without another word. He walked out. The door closed behind him with a quiet click, but the tension followed him out. His steps were faster now, controlled but edged. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply as he moved down the hallway. "Let me guess." The voice came from the side. Kai didn't stop, but he didn't need to look to know who it was. Michael Reeves, his closest friend. Michael fell into step beside him, hands casually in his pockets. "Same speech," he added. Kai let out a dry breath. "Something like that." They walked in silence for a moment. Then Kai spoke again, quieter this time. "Maybe he's right." Michael stopped. Kai didn't. Michael turned slightly, watching him. "He's not," Michael said firmly. Kai slowed. "You just haven't proven him wrong yet." Kai didn't respond immediately, because part of him didn't know if he could. After a moment, he pushed the thought aside. "I have work," he said. Michael smirked lightly. "Yeah, try not to fire anyone today." Kai didn't bother responding as he continued down the hall. Inside the HR office, everything was precise, organized, predictable, unlike everything else in his life. Files stacked neatly, applications sorted, decisions waiting to be made. Kai sat behind the desk, loosening his cuffs slightly as he leaned back. For a second, he just stared at the table, then reached forward, picked up the first file, flipped through it, nothing interesting. Next, then another, routine, names, qualifications, experience. all blending together. Until his fingers paused. A file. Simple. Nothing remarkable about it at first glance. Angela Rivera Kai's eyes lingered on the name for a second longer than necessary. Then he opened it. He read through the resume. Middle-class background, event management student, no extraordinary achievements, no powerful connections, ordinary. Too ordinary for a place like the Victoria. And yet, he didn't close the file. His gaze shifted to the small passport-sized photograph attached to the corner. And that's when something changed. He leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing just a fraction. In the picture, Angela wasn't trying to impress anyone. No forced smile. No polished expression. Just real. Her hazel eyes looked straight into the camera, unguarded but not empty. There was depth there. Something quiet. Something that didn't belong in a simple photograph. Something that made him pause. Kai didn't realize he had been staring for longer than necessary. But he didn't look away immediately either. There was no reason for it. No logic. And yet, he couldn't ignore it. He exhaled slowly, closing the file halfway before opening it again, as if confirming what he had just seen. Then leaned back in his chair, thoughtful, silent. For the first time that morning, his mind wasn't on his father, or the alpha position. It was on a girl he had never met, a complete stranger. And that was unusual. Kai reached for the telephone, picked it up. Get me HR assistance. A second passed. Then, send in Angela Rivera for an interview. He paused briefly. His eyes flicked once more to the photograph. Today. He placed the receiver down. The room fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was curious. A broken girl had just caught the attention of someone far more dangerous than she could ever imagine. Chapter 3. The Girl Who Disappeared. The curtain stayed closed. Day after day, the room that once held light, laughter, and late-night dreams now felt heavy, like the air itself had forgotten how to move. Angela lay on her bed, staring at nothing. Not the ceiling, not the walls. Just nothing. Her hair was loose, unbrushed, falling across her face. Her eyes, those same hazel eyes that once held warmth, now looked distant, faded, like something inside them had quietly shut down. Time passed around her. Morning turned into afternoon, afternoon into night, night into another morning. But inside that room, nothing changed. Days blurred together. A plate of food sat untouched on her bedside table, the edges drying, forgotten. Her phone lit up again and again. Messages, calls, notifications, friends asking where she was, classmates checking in, unknown numbers calling. She didn't pick up, didn't read, didn't respond. The screen would light up, glow softly in the dim room, and then fade back into darkness, just like her. Outside the room, life continued, but quieter, heavier. In the kitchen, her mother, Marina, stood by the counter, her hands resting against the edge as she tried to steady herself. Her eyes were red, not from one day of crying, from many. She hasn't eaten properly in 2 days, Marina whispered, her voice breaking despite her effort to stay composed. Across from her father, Daniel, stood still, watching, listening, carrying his worry differently, silently. She will, he said after a moment. Give her time. Marina shook her head, wiping her tears quickly. This isn't time, Daniel. This is... Her voice cracked. This is her disappearing. Daniel didn't respond immediately, because deep down, he knew she wasn't wrong. Inside the room, the silence stretched. The door creaked open slightly, and Ethan, her younger brother, stepped in quietly. He didn't joke this time, didn't tease. He walked slowly toward the bed and sat beside her. For a moment, he just looked at her, trying to find his sister in the girl lying there. You don't even talk to me anymore, he said softly. No response. Angela didn't move, didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge him. Ethan swallowed, his throat tightening slightly. I mean, you used to tell me everything. Now you don't even. He stopped, because it felt like he was talking to a wall. Angela turned slightly, not toward him, away. That was her answer. Ethan stared at her for a second longer, then stood up quietly and walked out, closing the door behind him. The room returned to silence. Angela's gaze slowly shifted toward the small table beside her bed. Her notebook lay there, closed, dust beginning to settle over it. There was a time she never let it out of her reach. Now she hadn't touched it in weeks. Her fingers moved slightly, hesitant, as if even reaching for it required effort. Finally, she picked it up, opened it. Blank pages stared back at her, waiting, always waiting. She held the pen, pressed it lightly against the paper, tried to write. One word, just one. But nothing came. Her hand trembled slightly, then stopped. The pen slipped from her fingers, and the notebook closed again, just like that. Weeks turned into months. The world moved forward. Angela didn't. Her room remained the same, curtains closed, lights dim, silence constant, until one afternoon, voices drifted in from outside her door. "She can't go on like this." Marina's voice strained desperate. "This isn't living." A pause, then Daniel's calm, steady tone. "She'll come back." "You don't know that," Marina whispered sharply. "I do," he said quietly. "She just needs something to pull her out." Angela lay still, eyes open, listening. For the first time in weeks, something shifted. Not fully, but enough. And then her phone rang. The sound cut through the silence sharply. Angela's brows furrowed slightly. She didn't move at first. It kept ringing. Persistent, unfamiliar. With a quiet sigh, she reached for it, answered. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, distant, professional, but barely. A woman's voice responded on the other end. "Hello, this is from the Victoria Hotel. We received your application." Angela blinked. For a second, she didn't remember. Then it came back. The application, the resume. "Yes," she said slowly. "We'd like you to come in for an interview today at 12 p.m. sharp." Angela sat up slightly. Her fingers tightened around the phone. "Today?" "Yes, be on time." The line disconnected, just like that. Angela stared at the phone. Her heartbeat, faint but present, picked up slightly. Something unfamiliar stirred inside her. Not excitement, not yet, but something close to awareness. She stepped out of her room for the first time in what felt like forever. Marina and Daniel both turned instantly, surprised. Angela stood there, still fragile, still quiet, but present. "I have an interview today," she said. Her voice wasn't strong, but it wasn't empty either. Marina's eyes widened. "An interview?" Angela nodded. "At the Victoria." For a second, no one spoke. Then Marina moved toward her quickly, hope flashing across her face. "That's amazing," she said softly, almost afraid to sound too excited. Daniel nodded slowly, his expression calm, but relieved. "That's good," he said. "It'll help." Ethan peeked from behind the hallway, watching her. For the first time in months, Angela didn't look like she was disappearing. She didn't feel completely lost. A girl who had disappeared was about to step back into the world without knowing it would change everything. Chapter 4, The First Encounter. The Victoria Hotel stood exactly the way Angela had imagined it. And yet, nothing like it. Towering glass, polished marble floors, quiet luxury in every corner. It wasn't just a workplace. It felt like a world built for people who belonged. Angela paused at the entrance. For a second, she didn't move. Her fingers tightened slightly around the strap of her bag, her hazel eyes scanning the space ahead. People walked past her with ease, confident, composed, like they knew exactly where they were going. She didn't. Not yet. She took a slow breath, then stepped inside. The shift was immediate. Cool air brushed against her skin, the faint scent of expensive perfume and polished wood filling her senses. The sound of heels clicking against marble echoed softly, blending with low conversations and distant movement. Angela felt it instantly. The difference. The way people carried themselves here. The way they looked at her. Not openly, not rudely, but enough. A quiet glance, a subtle pause, like they could tell she didn't quite belong. She adjusted her posture slightly, trying to steady herself. "Interview?" the receptionist asked. Angela nodded. "Yes, second floor, HR." "Thank you." As the elevator doors closed, Angela caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. Simple outfit, minimal makeup, no pretense. She looked real, and somehow that made her stand out more. The doors opened. She stepped into the hallway. And that's when Kai noticed her. From a distance standing near the glass window, Kai Thornfield looked up. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't planned. But his attention shifted the moment she stepped out. She walked slowly, carefully, like she was measuring every step. Small, quiet, almost, not in appearance, but in presence. And yet, there was something about her that didn't match that fragility, something steady beneath it. Kai's gaze lingered a second longer than necessary. Then he turned away, but not completely. Angela reached the HR office door. Her hand hovered for a second before she knocked. "Come in." She stepped inside. The room was quiet, empty. For a moment, she thought she was early. She stood there holding her file close, her heartbeat just a little louder than usual. Then the door behind her opened. She turned, and there he was. Kai walked in with the same calm authority, closing the door behind him as if he owned not just the room, but the air inside it. Which, in a way, he did. He moved past her without hesitation and took the seat behind the desk, the HR seat, his seat. Only then did he look up at her. Their eyes met, and for a second, Angela forgot what she was about to say. There was something about him, not just his height, not just the sharpness of his features, but the way he looked at her. Direct, steady, like he wasn't just seeing her appearance, but something deeper. Angela quickly looked away, sitting down as he gestured lightly. Her fingers tightened slightly around her file. She was nervous, more than she wanted to admit. Kai noticed. Of course he did. He leaned back slightly in his chair, his gaze softening just a fraction. Relax, he said, his tone unexpectedly lighter. I don't bite during interviews. Angela blinked, caught off guard. For a second, she didn't know how to respond. Then, a small smile escaped her. Barely there, but real. Kai noticed that too, and for reasons he didn't fully understand, he didn't look away. Silence settled again, but this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It carried awareness. Angela felt it, that subtle tension. The way his presence filled the space between them, the way her heartbeat didn't quite settle. Kai opened her file. Angela Rivera. Yes. His eyes moved briefly over the paper. Then back to her. You haven't been working for the past few months. Angela's fingers tightened slightly. A pause. She could lie, give a safer answer, a more acceptable one. But she didn't. My marriage was broken, she said quietly, and I wasn't mentally stable. The honesty hung in the air, unfiltered, unpolished. Kai didn't react immediately, but something in his expression shifted. Not pity, not judgment, respect. He nodded once. Thank you for not lying. Angela looked up, slightly surprised. A moment passed, then he asked, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Angela took a breath. This time, she didn't hesitate. I see myself here, growing into someone who can lead events at the Victoria. Her voice was soft but steady. For the first time, there was something like confidence in it. Kai didn't respond immediately. He just looked at her, really looked. Not at her appearance, but at the way she said it. The quiet determination. The lack of arrogance. The honesty. It wasn't ambition driven by ego. It was rebuilding. And that caught his attention more than anything else. Kai leaned back slightly. His gaze didn't leave her, for a second longer than necessary. Then you're hired. Angela blinked. What? You start tomorrow. Her brows furrowed slightly, confusion mixing with surprise. That's it? Kai's expression remained calm, unchanged. That's enough. Angela stared at him for a moment, still trying to understand. Why her, out of everyone? But she didn't ask because something told her he wouldn't explain it. She stood up slowly. Thank you, she said softly. This time her voice carried something new. Not just politeness, something steadier. She turned and walked out. The door closed. Kai didn't move. His eyes remained on the empty space she had just left behind. His fingers tapped lightly against the desk once, then stilled. There was no clear reason for his decision, no strong logic, no strategic benefit. And yet, he didn't question it, because something about her felt worth noticing. He didn't just hire her because she was qualified. He hired her because something in him refused to ignore her. Chapter 5. The Girl Who Doesn't Smile. The city was barely awake when Angela stepped out of the cab. New York mornings had a certain rhythm. Coffee carts steaming on corners, distant honking echoing between glass buildings, people already moving like they had somewhere important to be. But Angela walked through it like she was outside of it, like none of it touched her. The Victoria stood tall in front of her, its glass reflecting the pale gold of early sunlight. For a second, she looked up at it, not with awe this time, not even nervousness, just acceptance. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The lobby was quieter than usual. A few early staff members moved around, their voices low, footsteps echoing softly across the marble floors. Angela nodded briefly to the receptionist, her expression neutral, almost distant. Morning. Morning, she replied softly. And that was it. No smile, no pause. She walked straight toward the elevator. By the time she reached her desk, the office floor was still half empty. Angela placed her bag down carefully, adjusted her chair, and immediately opened her laptop. No scrolling, no hesitation. Work. That's all there was. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with quiet precision. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Like she had trained herself to stay focused on something that didn't ask questions, didn't remind her, didn't hurt. As the office slowly filled, voices grew around her. "Hey, good morning." "Morning," someone called out. Angela responded the same way every time. A small nod. Nothing more, no follow-up, no conversation. It was like she existed just enough to be present, but not enough to be known. From behind the glass walls of his cabin, Kai watched. Not constantly. Not obviously. But enough. He noticed things others didn't. The way Angela never checked her phone. Not once, not even when it buzzed faintly beside her. The way she didn't lean back in her chair, didn't stretch, didn't take breaks. The way her face stayed still. Not calm, not peaceful, just still. And something about that didn't sit right with him. By noon, the office shifted again. Chairs scraped lightly, conversations picked up. "Lunch?" someone asked. "Yeah, let's go." Groups formed naturally, people moving toward the exit, laughter trailing behind them. Angela didn't move. She stayed exactly where she was. After a few minutes, she reached into her bag, pulled out a small container, and opened it quietly. Simple food. Nothing special. She ate slowly, almost absent-minded, her gaze fixed somewhere on her desk, but not really seeing it. Kai stepped out of his cabin, not intentionally toward her. At least that's what he told himself. He walked past her desk, slowed down just slightly. His eyes flicked toward her. She didn't notice, or maybe she did, and chose not to react. He stopped, just for a second, like he might say something, like he should, but the words didn't come. So he kept walking. The silence returned, soft, heavy. Angela closed her container, set it aside, and reached for a file on the edge of her desk. Her fingers brushed against it, and it slipped. Papers scattered across the floor. The sound broke the quiet. Angela froze for half a second, then quickly bent down, gathering them with slightly hurried movements. There it was again, that subtle shift. Not panic, but something close, like she couldn't afford mistakes. Another pair of hands appeared beside hers, steady, unhurried. Kai. He crouched down without saying anything, picking up the papers one by one, placing them neatly into a stack. Angela stilled for a moment, then continued. Her movements smaller now, careful, controlled. Their hands reached for the same paper at the same time. And for a second, they almost touched. Angela pulled back immediately, too quickly, like contact itself was something to avoid. Kai noticed. Of course he did. He picked up the last sheet and handed it to her. "You don't have to rush," he said quietly. His voice wasn't commanding this time, just calm. Angela took the paper without looking at him. "I'm fine." The words came out automatically, like she had said them too many times before. Kai didn't move right away. He stayed there for a second longer, watching her. The way she avoided his eyes, the way her shoulders stayed slightly tense, even after the moment had passed. The way "I'm fine" didn't sound fine at all. He stood up slowly. Angela had already returned to her seat, already back to work, like nothing had happened, like she had pressed a reset button inside herself. Kai walked back toward his cabin, but something felt off. He paused near the glass wall, his hand resting lightly against it as he looked out at the office floor, at her. She didn't look up, didn't notice, didn't react, and that was what stayed with him. Most people tried too hard, tried to impress, tried to be seen. Angela did the opposite. She disappeared in plain sight, and somehow that made her impossible to ignore. Kai exhaled slowly, his gaze still fixed on her. It wasn't curiosity anymore. Not just that, it was something quieter, something deeper. "She's not cold," he muttered under his breath. His eyes narrowed slightly. "She's hurting." The realization settled in, not heavy, not dramatic, just certain. Angela shifted slightly in her chair, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. A small movement, but Kai noticed it. The way her fingers lingered for half of a second longer than necessary. The way her eyes softened just brief before going still again, like something inside her tried to surface. And then disappeared. Kai turned away, walked back into his cabin, but before the glass door closed completely, he glanced back once more, at her, still sitting there, still quiet, still unreachable. And for the first time, Kai didn't just notice her, he felt pulled toward her. Not because she stood out, but because she didn't. He didn't need her words to understand her. Her silence was already telling him everything. Chapter 6. Rain and Ride. The storm didn't arrive gently. It crashed into the city like it had something to prove, rain hammering against glass, thunder rolling through the skyline, lightning slicing the sky into brief, violent flashes. New York blurred under it, headlights stretching across wet asphalt, sidewalks turning into rivers. Inside the Victoria, the windows were streaked with water, distorting everything beyond them. The workday ended fast. Man, this came out of nowhere. Ugh, my Uber's canceled. Forget it. I'm running for it. Employees rushed out in waves, umbrellas opening mid-stride, heels clicking faster than usual, laughter mixed with frustration. And then it was quiet, almost. Angela stood near the entrance, not rushing, not complaining, just watching. Her arms were loosely wrapped around herself, fingers curled against her sleeves as she looked at the rain hitting the pavement. The drops bounced, splashed, scattered. Like chaos, she didn't feel the need to escape. Her phone lit up. She checked it. No rides. Again. Her thumb hovered, refreshed. Nothing. A quiet breath left her lips. She stepped slightly forward, just enough for the edge of the rain to touch her. Cold droplets landed on her sleeves, soaking through the thin fabric. The material clung lightly to her skin, outlining the curve of her arms. A strand of her damp hair slipped forward, sticking faintly against her cheek. She didn't move back immediately, just stood there, letting it happen. Then, slowly, she stepped back under the awning again. From inside, Kai watched. At first, it was just a glance. Then it wasn't. His attention fixed on her without permission, like something in him had already decided before he could think it through. Rain slid down her face, over her cheek, along the curve of her jaw, trailing down the side of her neck. His eyes followed without meaning to. Not in a way that was careless, not in a way that was shallow, but in a way that noticed everything. Too much, maybe. He exhaled quietly. She won't ask for help, even if she needs it. That thought settled deep and stayed. Kai moved, pushed the door open, stepping into the storm's edge. The rain caught his coat immediately, darkening the fabric as he walked toward her. Halfway there, he slowed. A thought crossed his mind, unexpected, almost ridiculous. What if she says no? He scoffed internally. Come on, Kai. You run this place. You're not getting rejected over a ride, a beat. Still, what if she does? He shook his head slightly, almost amused at himself, then stopped beside her. Not too close. Close enough. You planning to wait the storm out? His voice was calm, almost casual. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the sky. Angela turned her head slowly. Her gaze lifted from the rain hitting the ground to him, then dropped again. I'll manage. Soft, simple, final, and yet not convincing. Kai glanced at her then, really looked. The damp strands of her hair, the quiet tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers pressed into her sleeves like she was grounding herself. You won't, he said. Not harsh, just certain, a pause. Get in. Angela looked at him again, this time longer. There was no pressure in his expression, no impatience, just something steady. She waited. Trust, discomfort, distance, and something else she couldn't quite name. Then, a small nod. The car door shut with a soft thud. Inside, everything changed. Warmth replaced cold, silence replaced noise. The rain still hit the windshield hard, but now it sounded distant, like the world had been pushed outside. Angela sat stiffly in the passenger seat, hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes fixed straight ahead. Kai started the engine. Didn't say anything, neither did she. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It carried awareness, the kind that made every small movement feel louder than it was. Kai adjusted his grip on the wheel slightly. Angela shifted just a fraction in her seat. Their breathing, the rhythm of the wipers, the low hum of the engine, everything blended into something strangely intimate. Kai glanced at her. She didn't notice, or pretended not to. You're always this quiet? He asked. His tone softer now. Angela didn't look at him. Only when there's nothing to say. That made something flicker in his expression. Not amusement, something quieter, more interested. The drive didn't feel long, or maybe it did. Time moved differently in silence like that. The car pulled up in front of a modest house. Warm light spilled from the windows. Home. Kai stopped the car. Angela hesitated for a second, then reached for the door. Thank you, she said quietly, and stepped out. The front door opened before she reached it. Marina, her mother, stood there, worry written all over her face. Angela, her eyes scanned her quickly, then shifted to Kai, who was now stepping out of the car. Behind Marina, Daniel, her father, appeared, his posture calm but alert. Angela spoke first. "This is Kai Thornfield, Mr. Kellen Thornfield's son." A brief silence. Then, Marina's expression softened slightly. "Oh, come in," she said, stepping aside. Kai approached the doorway and paused. The frame was lower than he expected. He dipped his head slightly to step inside. Both Marina and Daniel noticed. A quick glance passed between them, silent, unspoken. Inside, the house felt warm, lived in, real. Angela moved toward her room quietly. "I'll change," she said. Marina nodded. "Go ahead." Kai was left in the guest area, alone, for a moment. His eyes moved around the room, not intrusively, just observing. Then something caught his attention. A notebook. Partially open, torn pages tucked loosely inside. He hesitated, then picked it up, carefully read a line, then another. The words weren't polished, they weren't meant to be seen, but they were real, painfully real. Kai's jaw tightened slightly. He closed it again, placed it exactly where it was, like he hadn't touched it at all. In the kitchen, Marina spoke in a low voice. "He's different." Daniel nodded slightly. "We'll figure it out." Back in the room, Marina brought coffee and snacks. Kai accepted them politely. "Thank you." He ate slowly, but his mind wasn't there. It was on her, on the words he read, on the silence she carried. Later, as he stepped out of the house, the rain had softened, but something else had changed inside him. The door closed behind Kai. The house fell into a quieter kind of silence. Marina stood still for a moment, her eyes lingering on the door as if she was still seeing him there. Then she turned toward Angela. "Did you notice him?" Angela frowned slightly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Notice what?" Marina exchanged a look with Daniel, one of those quiet, wordless conversations that had been built over years. "Have you ever seen a man that tall in your life?" she said. Angela didn't answer immediately. Daniel stepped in, his tone calm but firm. "I'm 55 years old," he said, folding his arms slightly, "and I've never seen someone like him. He's, 7 feet? Maybe more." Angela raised a brow. Daniel continued, more thoughtful now. "And not just tall. The way he carries himself, strong, solid, that kind of build, it's not normal. Not like that." Marina nodded slowly, her voice dropping just a little. "There's something about him. He doesn't feel," she hesitated, searching for the right word, "human." Angela blinked, then let out a small, disbelieving laugh. "Okay, now you both sound crazy." Marina didn't smile. "I'm serious." Angela shook her head, picking up her bag. "Come on, Mom, you're overthinking." She turned, walking toward her room without waiting for a response. But as she reached the hallway, she paused, just for a second. Kai's presence flickered through her mind. The way he looked at her, the way he spoke, the way he felt, different. She shook it off. "No," she muttered softly to herself, and disappeared into her room. The doubt didn't stay with her long, but it was there, just enough to matter. Chapter 7. The Graveyard. The next day didn't feel any different, but something had shifted. Not outside, not in the world, inside. Kai stood near Angela's desk, his presence quiet but impossible to ignore. She looked up. Their eyes met. For a second, neither spoke. Then, "Come with me after work." His voice was calm, direct, no explanation, no room for overthinking. Angela blinked slightly. There was a question in her eyes, but it never reached her lips. She just nodded, slowly. The evening settled in with a soft golden hue, the kind that makes the city look gentler than it really is. Kai's car moved smoothly through the streets, headlights reflecting off passing glass buildings. Inside, silence, but not the kind that felt heavy. Not anymore. Angela sat beside him, hands resting loosely in her lap, her gaze shifting occasionally between the road and the passing skyline. She didn't ask where they were going, and Kai didn't tell her. Somehow, that worked. The car slowed, turned, and finally stopped. Angela looked outside, her brows furrowed slightly, rows of headstones, stillness, a cemetery. She turned toward him. "Why are we here?" Kai didn't answer, not immediately. He stepped out of the car. Angela hesitated for a second, then followed. The air felt different there, quieter, like even the wind knew not to disturb anything. Kai walked ahead, his steps slower now, less controlled, less guarded. Angela followed a few steps behind, watching him carefully. Something about him had changed, not visibly, but deeply. He stopped, in front of a grave. Angela's eyes shifted to the name carved into the stone. Megan Thornfield, his mother. Kai didn't speak right away. He just stood there, still, and for the first time since she had met him, he didn't look like the man who controlled every room he walked into. He looked human. Angela stayed quiet, didn't interrupt, didn't move closer, just watched. "This is where I come," Kai said finally, his voice low, almost distant, "when things get too loud." Angela's eyes softened. He exhaled slowly. "I never really learned how to live without her." A small pause. His gaze fixed on the name. "When she left, I didn't know what to do with myself." His voice didn't break, but something inside it did. "I used to cry at night," he admitted, almost like it surprised him to say it out loud. "Didn't matter how hard I tried to act strong during the day." Angela felt something shift inside her. Not pity. Something deeper. Understanding. Kai let out a quiet breath. Everything became a struggle. Even the smallest things, eating alone, sitting in silence, it all felt wrong. He shook his head slightly. "I was 8. The number lingered in the air. Angela swallowed softly. Kai turned his head slightly toward her, his eyes carrying something raw now, something he didn't hide. "Have you ever heard that song from Titanic?" Angela blinked, then nodded gently. "Near far, wherever you are," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "I believe that the heart does go on." Kai's lips moved faintly, not quite a smile, but close. "Exactly." He looked back at the grave. "You don't stop living just because someone left." The words landed, deep. Angela's chest tightened slightly. Her eyes dropped to the ground for a moment, then back to him. She moved, slowly, and sat down beside him. Not too close, but close enough. The wind moved gently around them, carrying silence, but not emptiness. Angela inhaled slowly, then spoke. "My wedding day." Her voice was soft, careful, like she was stepping into something fragile. "I was sitting in front of the mirror, wearing that dress." Her lips pressed together briefly. "I thought everything was perfect." A pause. Her fingers tightened slightly against her own hands. "He called me." Kai didn't move, didn't interrupt. "I smiled when I picked up." Her voice cracked, just slightly. And then he said he wasn't coming. The memory hit harder than she expected. He said he was marrying someone else because it was better for his future. A bitter breath escaped her. "I didn't even understand what was happening. I just kept asking if he was joking." Her eyes grew distant. "He told me to grow up." Silence. He hung up. Angela blinked slowly. I remember the sound of my phone hitting the floor, and then nothing. Kai's jaw tightened slightly, not in anger, in restraint. "I woke up, and everything was gone," Angela continued quietly. "Not just him, everything I believed in." Her voice softened further. "I stopped feeling anything after that." Silence returned. But this time, it held both of them. Kai shifted slightly, just enough that their shoulders brushed that barely. But it was there. Angela didn't move away, neither did he. That small contact carried more weight than words. Angela exhaled slowly, a deeper breath than she had taken in days, weeks, maybe longer. For the first time, the weight in her chest felt lighter, not gone, but lighter. Her lips curved, just slightly, a small smile, soft, real, unforced. Kai noticed immediately. His gaze shifted toward her and stayed there for a second longer than necessary. He didn't say anything, but something inside him settled. Because for the first time, she didn't look broken. And in that quiet moment, without realizing it, Kai became the reason she started healing. Chapter 8. The Night of the Reveal. The road out of the cemetery felt longer than it should have. Like time had stretched. Like something unseen had settled between them and refused to leave. Kai drove in silence, the headlights carving a narrow path through the dark. The city had disappeared miles ago. No traffic, no streetlights, just a thin ribbon of road cutting through dense woods. Angela sat beside him, quieter than usual, but not empty. Changed. Her fingers rested loosely in her lap, but every now and then they tightened, like her body was remembering something her mind hadn't fully caught up to yet. The conversation at the graveyard lingered. His words, his pain. That small, fragile moment they had shared. It hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened. The road stretched ahead, quiet for now. Angela shifted slightly in her seat, her fingers tracing the edge of her sleeve absent-mindedly. She looked out the window for a moment, then spoke, soft but clearer than before. "I was thinking about what you said at the cemetery." Kai glanced at her briefly, then back at the road. "What part?" Angela exhaled slowly. "That you don't stop living just because someone left." A small pause. Her voice dropped, but it held something new, something steadier. I haven't written anything in months, she admitted. Not a single line. Kai didn't interrupt, didn't rush her. Angela continued, quieter now. But today, I felt like I could. That was it. Simple, but it meant everything. Kai's grip on the wheel eased slightly. Then write, he said. No long speech, no pressure, just certainty. Angela nodded faintly, almost to herself. Yeah, maybe I will. And for the first time, it didn't sound like doubt. Then, the car turned onto a narrower road. The trees grew thicker, the darkness heavier, even the air felt different. Angela shifted slightly, just her gaze moving toward the window. The forest seemed too still, too quiet, like everything was holding its breath. Why does it feel different here? She asked softly. Kai didn't respond right away, but his grip on the steering wheel tightened. His jaw flexed, his eyes sharpened. Something's wrong. A low growl echoed through the trees, not loud, but deep enough to be felt. Angela straightened instantly. Did you hear that? Kai's eyes flicked to the side of the road. A shadow moved, fast, gone, then another, closer. Before either of them could react, bam, something slammed into the side of the car with brutal force. The entire vehicle jolted. Angela gasped, her body snapping toward the door. What is that? Her voice broke slightly, panic rising fast. Kai steadied the wheel, his movements sharp but controlled. Then he saw them. Eyes. Multiple, glowing faintly in the dark. One pair, then three, then more. They stepped out of the shadows slowly. Circling, hunting. Angela's breathing became uneven. Her fingers gripped the edge of her seat. They're wolves. But even as she said it, she knew these weren't normal. Kai's voice cut through her panic. Stay inside. Calm, firm, unshakable. Lock the doors. Angela fumbled slightly, pressing the lock button, her heart hammering in her chest. Outside, the wolves moved closer, their bodies low, tense, ready. Kai turned toward her, and for a second, everything slowed. I'll take you home safely, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it held something stronger than fear. I promise. Angela stared at him, and despite everything, she believed him. Then he opened the door, stepped out. Kai. Her voice followed him, but he didn't stop, didn't turn back. The moment his feet hit the ground, everything changed. The air shifted, the tension snapped, and Kai moved. It started subtly, a tightening of muscle, a shift in posture, then something deeper, more primal. His body tensed, shoulders rolling as if something inside him was breaking free, not chaotically but with control, power, raw and contained. Angela's breath hitched. Her eyes widened as she watched, unable to look away, unable to understand. And then, he wasn't just Kai anymore. A massive wolf stood where he had been, larger than the others, stronger, dominant. The first wolf lunged, fast, sharp. Kai moved faster. He twisted midair, his body colliding with the attacker, slamming it hard into the ground. The impact echoed through the trees. Another came from the side. Kai pivoted, jaws snapping, forcing it back before it could land a hit. A third attacked from behind. This time it connected. A sharp strike. Kai's body jerked slightly, a low, dangerous growl tearing from him. Angela gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Her heart raced violently. For a split second, it looked like he might be overwhelmed. And then, everything shifted. Kai rose, slower, heavier, stronger. His presence changed, no longer reacting, now commanding. The next wolf lunged. Kai met it head-on, overpowering it mid-motion, forcing it back with sheer strength. Another tried to circle. Kai turned instantly, cutting off its path. Every movement now was precise, controlled, dominant. Angela couldn't breathe. Her eyes tracked him desperately, fear and something else twisting inside her. He wasn't just fighting, he was protecting. One wolf charged again. This time, its claws grazed his forehead. A thin line of blood appeared. Angela's chest tightened. No. But Kai didn't slow, didn't hesitate. If anything, he became more dangerous. Then, another presence crashed into the fight. A second wolf. Powerful, fast, familiar. Michael. Together, they moved like they had done this 100 times before. Seamless, deadly, unstoppable. The attackers began to falter. One fell, then another. The rest backed away, retreated, vanishing into the darkness they came from. Silence followed, heavy, unreal. Angela sat frozen, her entire body trembling, her mind struggling to catch up with what she had just witnessed. Outside, the two wolves stood still, breathing, alive. And then they shifted, bone, muscle, form, returning. Two men stood there, bare skin catching the dim light. Human again. Angela's eyes locked on Kai. She couldn't look away, couldn't think, couldn't speak. Kai avoided her gaze. For the first time, he didn't look in control. Not fully. He moved toward the trunk, pulling out clothes quickly, tossing a set to Michael before dressing himself. Every movement efficient, silent. The car ride back felt heavier than the storm. Angela sat still, too still, her mind replaying everything, over and over. I told you not to move alone in the woods. Michael's voice broke the silence from the back seat, sharp, frustrated. Kai didn't respond. His eyes stayed on the road. At least take guards next time, Michael added. Still, nothing. A drop of blood slid from Kai's forehead. Angela noticed. Her hand moved before her thoughts could stop it. She reached into her bag, pulled out her handkerchief, and leaned slightly closer. Her fingers trembled, but her touch didn't. She pressed the cloth gently against his wound. Careful, soft. Kai stilled, just for a second. His grip on the wheel tightened, but he didn't pull away. Angela's breath was uneven, her heart still racing, fear still there. But so was something else, something she didn't understand. She pulled her hand back slowly, as if realizing what she had just done. No one spoke after that. The car stopped outside her house. Angela stepped out. Her legs felt unfamiliar, unsteady. The door opened. Where were you? Marina's voice came, but it sounded distant. Angela didn't answer. Couldn't. Chapter 9. The Truth Between Fear and Desire. Sleep didn't come to Angela that night. Not really. She lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, the faint glow of streetlights slipping through her curtains, painting soft shadows across the room. The world outside was quiet, but inside her mind, everything was loud. Too loud. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it. The wolves, the way they moved, the way he moved, the transformation, the blood. God, his eyes. Angela turned to her side, pulling the blanket closer like it could ground her. This isn't real, she whispered to herself. But her voice didn't sound convincing, because it was real. She had seen it, felt it, lived through it. And the worst part? She wasn't just scared. She exhaled sharply, pressing her fingers to her forehead. I should stay away from him. A pause. Her brows tightened. So why do I want to see him? Silence answered her. The next morning felt wrong, too normal. The world hadn't changed, but hers had. Angela walked into the Victoria like she always did. Same doors, same polished floors, same people moving like everything made sense. But nothing did, not anymore. Her steps slowed slightly as she entered the office floor, and then she saw him, Kai, standing near the glass cabin, talking to someone, calm, composed, like nothing had happened, like last night didn't exist. Angela froze. Her breath caught. For a second, she couldn't move, couldn't look away. Her heart started racing again, but not the same way as last night. This was different, quieter, more dangerous. Kai felt it before he saw her, that shift in the air, that presence. He turned, and their eyes met. Time slowed, just for a second. Angela saw it again, not the wolf, but the man, and somehow that made it worse. He ended the conversation quickly, walked toward her, each step measured, controlled, like always, but something underneath it had changed. Something neither of them was ready to name. Angela didn't wait, didn't soften, didn't pretend. What are you? Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. They searched him, demanded something real. Kai stopped in front of her. Close, but not too close. You shouldn't ask questions you're not ready for, he said quietly. Angela shook her head immediately. I saw you. 2 words, and everything shifted. Silence fell between them, heavy, unavoidable. People moved around them, voices blending into background noise, but for them it felt like the world had narrowed down to just this moment, just this distance, just this truth. Kai exhaled slowly. His gaze didn't leave hers. I'm not human. The words landed differently this time, not like a confession, like a fact, unchangeable. Angela took a small step back, not running, not leaving, but affected. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. Were you ever going to tell me? She asked, her voice softer now, but sharper. Or just let me find out like that? Kai's jaw tightened slightly. I was going to, he said. A pause. When you were ready. Angela let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but wasn't. Ready? She repeated. Her eyes flickered. You think anyone can be ready for that? Silence. Again, but this time, it carried something deeper, something raw. Angela's fingers tightened slightly at her sides. Her voice dropped, softer now, but trembling underneath. You could have hurt me. The words didn't come out accusing. They came out shaken, like she was still standing in that forest, still seeing him, still feeling everything all at once. Kai didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, not enough to trap her, but enough that she could feel him. The warmth of his presence, the gravity of it. If I wanted to? His voice lowered, rougher now, quieter. You wouldn't be standing this close to me. There was no threat in it, no arrogance, just truth, unfiltered. Angela's breath caught, her heartbeat stumbled for a second, then picked up faster. Not from fear alone, from something else. Something she didn't want to name. But you didn't, she said, barely above a whisper. Her eyes lifted to meet his. And this time, she didn't look away. Kai held her gaze, steady, unmoving, like if he looked away, something between them would break. You stayed, she added softly. You fought for me. Her voice trembled at the edges, not weak, just real. The space between them felt smaller now, or maybe they just weren't resisting it anymore. Angela swallowed slowly. Her lips parted slightly before she spoke again. I should be terrified of you. A pause. Her eyes flickered, searching his face, his eyes something deeper. But I'm not. Kai's jaw tightened just slightly, not in anger, in restraint. That's exactly why you should be, he said quietly. But even he didn't sound convinced. Angela shook her head faintly, a small, almost invisible movement. No, she whispered. And then she took a step closer, closing the distance herself this time. Now they were standing inches apart, close enough to feel each other's breath, close enough that silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full, heavy, alive. Her voice dropped again, soft, unsteady, honest. Then why do I feel safe with you? That question didn't just hang in the air. It settled between them, deep, unavoidable. Kai's expression shifted. For the first time, he didn't have control over it. Not completely. Because the truth was, he didn't know either. And maybe that was exactly what pulled him closer. She should have been running away from him. But instead, she was standing closer than ever. Chapter 10. The Night That Changed Everything. The mansion felt colder than usual. Not because of the weather, because of the silence. Kai stepped inside, rain still clinging to his coat, his presence cutting through the quiet like something restless, something unsettled. He already knew. Before he even reached the study. The smell hit first. Alcohol. Sharp, familiar, unwelcome. Kellen Thornfield sat in his chair, glass in hand, half filled with wine, his posture loose, careless, like a man who had stopped trying to hold himself together. Kai's jaw tightened. Father? No response. Just the faint swirl of liquid in the glass. Kai stepped forward, faster this time. And in one swift motion, he knocked the glass out of Kellen's hand. It shattered against the floor. Doctor told you not to drink, Kai said, frustration breaking through his control. How many times do I have to say it? Kellen didn't look at him, didn't argue, didn't react. He simply reached for the bottle on the table and took a long drink straight from it. Something in Kai snapped. He grabbed the bottle, pulling it away. You're gonna ruin yourself like this. Kellen's eyes finally lifted. Cold, distant. Give it back. Kai didn't move. No, give it to me, Kai. You'll die if you keep doing this. Silence. Heavy. Then Kellen stood up, unsteady but angry. I said, give it back. Kai's grip tightened. No. The slap came suddenly, sharp, echoing through the room. For a second, everything stilled. Kai didn't move, didn't react. He just stood there, staring at his father, not in anger, not even in shock. Something deeper, something tired. Then slowly, he dropped the bottle, let it fall. It hit the ground, shattered, glass scattered across the floor, wine bleeding into the marble. Kai turned and walked out. The rain had gotten heavier. By the time he reached his car, it was pouring, cold drops soaking through his shirt, his hair, his skin. But he didn't care, didn't slow down, didn't think. There was only one place his mind took him. Angela. The knock on her door wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. It carried weight, urgency. Angela was alone. Her parents had gone out of town for a wedding, leaving the house quieter than usual, every sound echoing a little too much in the empty space. The door opened. Angela froze at the sight before her. Kai stood there, soaked, rain dripping from his hair down his face along his jaw. His shirt clung to him, outlining the hard planes of his chest. But it wasn't his appearance that caught her. It was his eyes. Something was broken in them, not weak, but exposed. Her expression shifting instantly the moment she saw him. Kai, no questions, no hesitation. She stepped aside. Come in. He walked in quietly, bringing the storm in with him. Angela closed the door behind him, the sound of rain now muffled, but still present, like a constant reminder of the night. She looked at him again. Really looked. Something was off. Not his strength, not his control, something deeper. Come, she said softly, not toward the living room, not toward conversation. She led him to her room. The space felt warm, safe, a contrast to everything he had just left behind. Kai didn't say anything. He just sat on the edge of the bed, for a second, still holding himself together. And then, he let go. He shifted slightly, turning toward her, and without a word, rested his head gently in her lap. His knees pulled slightly inward, his body folding into itself in a way that had nothing to do with weakness, and everything to do with trust. Angela stilled for a moment, not surprised, just careful. Her fingers moved slowly into his damp hair, soft, steady. She didn't rush, didn't ask questions. She just ran her fingers through his hair, again and again, smoothing it back, grounding him. I went home, Kai whispered. That was all it took. Angela understood. He was doing it again, Kai continued, his voice low, controlled, but barely. I tried to stop him. A pause. He didn't listen. Angela stepped closer, slowly, carefully. He never does, Kai added, a bitter edge slipping through. And you still try, she said softly. Kai looked at her then, really looked. Because he's my father. The words didn't sound strong. They sounded heavy. Silence settled between them. Angela's hand slowed for just a second, then resumed. You still tried. Kai closed his eyes. Her touch, it steadied something inside him. He doesn't see me, Kai said, not angry, just tired. Angela's fingers brushed lightly across his forehead, careful where the earlier wound had been. I see you, she said softly. Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. Kai shifted slightly, his hand resting lightly against her side, not pulling, not holding, just there. Angela looked down at him, at the man who faced the world without hesitation, and yet here chose to rest. Her fingers slowed, then stilled. Kai, she whispered. He opened his eyes, lifted his head slightly. Their gazes met, closer now. There was no distance left, not really. I'm not human, Angela, Kai said quietly. Angela didn't flinch. I know. A breath passed between them. I'm the heir of the Alpha. She held his gaze and nodded. Acceptance, simple, complete. Kai sat up face to face with her, close enough to feel her breath. His hand lifted, brushing a loose strand of hair away from her face. His touch lingered. That was all it took. Something in Kai shifted. Not control, not dominance. Something softer, more dangerous. His hand moved from her cheek, slowly tracing down the curve of her jaw to her neck, pausing there for just a second, feeling her pulse beneath his fingers. Fast, alive, because of him. Angela inhaled softly. Her hands moved instinctively, sliding up from his chest to his shoulders, holding on to him, not out of fear, but because she wanted to stay close. Kai, she murmured, barely a breath. He didn't let her finish, not with words. He kissed her slower, deeper, not searching, knowing. Angela responded instantly, her body leaning into his without thinking, without holding back. One of her hands slipped into his damp hair, fingers tangling slightly, pulling him just a fraction closer. The space between them disappeared. Kai's hand settled at her waist, steady, warm, drawing her closer until there was no distance left to question. The kiss broke, but only for a second, just enough for breath. Just enough for their foreheads to touch again. Angela's eyes fluttered open. She didn't step back, didn't create space. Instead, she closed it again. Her hand slid from his shoulder down his arm, slow, deliberate, feeling the tension in him, the strength, the restraint he was still holding on to. Kai exhaled softly, his thumb brushing lightly against her cheek again, this time not questioning, not asking, remembering. I want this, he said, his voice rougher now, quieter. Not just tonight. Angela's lips parted slightly. Her gaze softened, a faint smile touched his lips, and then he pulled her closer again. The moment unfolded slowly after that, not rushed, not lost in urgency. Outside, the rain kept falling, soft now, steady, like the world had slowed down just for them. Angela's breath was uneven, her fingers still resting against him, holding on like she didn't want the distance to return again. Kai's hand moved gently along her back, pausing for a second as if he was deciding something, or holding himself back from it. He pulled back just enough to look at her, really look at her. His eyes darker now, not with danger but with something deeper, something permanent. Angela, his voice dropped, quieter than before. There was a weight to it. I want to mark you. The words settled between them. Not rushed, not forced. Angela didn't fully understand everything that it meant, but she understood enough. The way he said it, the way he looked at her. Like this wasn't just a moment. It was a decision. Her fingers tightened slightly against him. Her breath slowed, and then she nodded. That was all he needed. Kai's hand rose to her face again, his thumb brushing gently along her cheek, grounding her, making sure she was still there with him, still choosing this, still choosing him. Kai leaned closer. His hand slid from her cheek to the side of her neck, his touch warm, steady, grounding. Angela inhaled sharply. Her lips parted slightly. Her body tensed for just a second, not in fear, in anticipation. Kai leaned in, slow, unhurried. His lips brushed softly against her neck. A gentle kiss, then another, lingering. Angela's fingers gripped his shirt tighter, her breath uneven now, her head tilting slightly, giving him space without realizing it. Kai paused there, right at her neck, feeling her pulse beneath his lips, fast, alive. His expression shifted, subtle, focused, his hold on her steadied, not forceful, but certain. Angela's eyes widened slightly, her breath catching as she felt the change, the moment stretching just before it happened. And then, he marked her. The moment was brief, but intense. Angela gasped softly, her fingers tightening against him, her body reacting before her mind could. Her lips parted, her eyes closing fully now, holding on to him, not pulling away. Kai didn't rush away. He stayed there for a second, letting the moment settle. Then slowly he pulled back. Angela's breathing was uneven, her chest rising and falling as she tried to steady herself. Her eyes opened slowly, meeting his. No fear, no regret, just something deeper. Kai's forehead rested lightly against hers, his voice softer now. Now you're mine. Outside, the rain continued. But inside, everything had changed. They didn't just cross a line that night. The bond was sealed in a way neither of them could walk away from. Chapter 11, Love versus Fear. Morning didn't rush in. It lingered. Soft sunlight slipped through the curtains, brushing against the quiet room, like it didn't want to disturb what had been created the night before. Angela stirred first. The world felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just closer. Like everything had shifted a little toward her. She blinked slowly, adjusting to the light, and then she felt it. Warmth, solid, steady. Kai. He was beside her, the sheets tangled around them, his arm loosely draped over her waist like even in sleep. He refused to let go. His breathing was calm now, nothing like the storm he had been the night before. Angela didn't move right away. She just looked at him. The sharp lines of his face softened in sleep. The tension he carried in his jaw was gone. His hair fell slightly over his forehead, messy, unguarded. Human. Or at least, close enough. Her fingers moved before she thought about it, brushing lightly through his hair, the same way she had the night before. Kai's eyes opened. Not suddenly, not sharply, slow, aware, like he always knew exactly where he was and who he was with. His gaze met hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke, because they didn't need to. Something had changed, something that didn't need words anymore. Kai's hand lifted, brushing a loose strand of hair away from her face. His thumb lingered against her skin, tracing the edge of her cheek like he was memorizing it. You okay? He asked, his voice low, rough with sleep. Angela nodded softly. Yeah. But her voice came out quieter than usual. More. Felt. Kai studied her for a second longer, his eyes drifting just briefly to the mark at her neck. His jaw tightened slightly, something possessive flickering in his gaze before he leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't hungry. It was gentle. I should go, he murmured. Reality. It slipped back in, just like that. Angela exhaled softly, her fingers tightening slightly in the sheet. Yeah, My parents could be back anytime. Neither of them moved immediately, like leaving meant breaking something fragile between them. But Kai finally pulled back, sitting up, running a hand through his hair as he reached for his clothes. Angela wrapped the sheet closer around herself, watching him, not saying anything but not looking away either. At the door, he paused, looked back at her, and for a second, that same intensity returned. Unspoken, unavoidable. Then he left. The house felt too quiet after that. Angela barely had time to process it before the front door opened. Voices. Her parents. Angela froze. Her heart picked up instantly as she rushed out of her room, trying to steady herself, trying to act normal. But the moment she stepped into the hallway, Mariana was already there, watching her. Carefully. "You're up early," Mariana said, her tone neutral, but her eyes weren't. They were searching. Angela forced a small smile. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." Mariana's gaze shifted past her, toward the front door. "Was someone here?" Angela's fingers curled slightly at her sides. "Kai, he just came to drop something. Too quick, too simple." Mariana didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, and that's when she saw it. The mark. Her expression changed, subtle, but sharp. "Angela," her voice dropped. "What is that?" Angela instinctively lifted her hand to her neck. Too late. Mariana already knew. Her face hardened, something between fear and anger rising in her eyes. "Tell me," she pressed. Angela didn't answer. She couldn't, because saying it out loud would make it real in a way she wasn't ready for. Mariana's voice broke slightly, but not from softness, from fear. "After everything Mitchell did to you, after how he left you, this is what you do," she said, shaking her head. "You go back into something dangerous? With someone who isn't even." She stopped herself, but the word still landed. "Human." Angela flinched. "That's not," she tried, but her voice failed. Mariana stepped closer, her tone sharper now. "You think this is love? You think this won't end the same way? Or worse?" Each word hit harder, because Angela didn't have answers, only feelings. And feelings weren't enough to fight fear. Her chest tightened, her breathing grew uneven, the room started to blur. "Angela?" Her mother's voice shifted. But it was too late. Angela collapsed. Miles away, Kai drove faster than he should have. The morning air cut through the open window, cold against his skin, but it didn't clear his mind. Nothing did. Her. The way she looked at him. The mark. The way it felt. Something had shifted inside him, and he didn't know if it made him stronger or more vulnerable. And that's when it hit. A shadow moved too fast, then another. Kai slammed the brakes. The road ahead was blocked. Wolves. Not one, not two. A pack. Large. Too large. Kai stepped out of the car slowly, his body already reacting, instincts sharpening. "Of course," he muttered under his breath. They circled, low growls filling the air. This wasn't random. This was planned. The first one lunged, down. Kai moved instantly, catching it midair, slamming it to the ground with brutal force. Another came from the side. He turned, striking it back, but more followed. Too many. Claws tore into his shoulder. Another strike landed across his ribs. Kai gritted his teeth, fighting harder now, his movements turning more aggressive, more alpha, raw power replacing restraint. But even he couldn't handle numbers like this alone. One hit him from behind, another from the front. He staggered. Blood stained his shirt. And just as another wolf lunged, a gunshot rang through the air. Then another. The wolves hesitated. "Back off!" Michael's voice cut through. Pack members rushed in, forcing the attackers to retreat, their formation breaking under pressure. Kai dropped to one knee, breathing hard, vision blurring. Michael reached him quickly, gripping his shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. Kai let out a rough breath. "I've had better mornings." Michael didn't waste time. "Get him in the car, now." Angela sat at her desk. Hours later, the house was quiet again, too quiet. Her head still ached faintly, but she needed something, anything, to steady herself. So she wrote. The pen moved slowly at first, then faster. Words spilling out like they had been waiting. About him, about fear, about love that didn't feel safe, but still felt right. Her fingers trembled slightly as she wrote the last line. And then her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something told her not to. "Hello? Angela?" A pause. "Michael here." Her grip tightened. "What happened?" she asked immediately. Silence, just for a second. Then, "Kai's hurt." The world stopped. "What?" "He was attacked. We got him out, but he's in the hospital." The phone slipped from her hand, hit the floor. Angela didn't move, didn't breathe. because the only thing she could hear was her heart breaking all over again. Chapter 12, A Promise to Protect. Hospitals had a way of stripping everything down to truth. No masks, no distractions, just fear and what you were willing to fight for. The fluorescent lights hummed quietly above as Mariana and Daniel walked down the corridor, their footsteps quick, tense, like every second mattered. Because it did. Their daughter was involved with a man they didn't understand. And that man was lying inside one of those rooms. Injured, dangerous, and somehow important. Kai sat upright on the hospital bed, bandages wrapped across his shoulder, his ribs tightly secured, a faint line of dried blood still visible near his collar. He looked restrained, contained, but not weak. Never weak. His eyes lifted the moment the door opened. Mariana, Daniel. Silence filled the room instantly, not awkward, heavy. Mariana stepped forward first. No hesitation, no politeness, just a mother protecting her child. "What did you do with my daughter?" she asked. Direct, sharp. Kai didn't flinch, didn't look away. "Nothing she didn't choose," he replied calmly. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. Mariana's voice rose, not loud, but trembling with something deeper. "I've seen this before," she said. "Promises, feelings, and then..." She stopped, her breath catching. Then they walk away. Mitchell. The name didn't need to be said. It was already there. Kai's expression shifted. Not defensive, not angry, serious. "I'm not him," he said quietly. Mariana shook her head. "That's what they all say." Kai leaned forward slightly, ignoring the pain that flickered across his face. "I don't say things I don't mean." His voice lowered, but it carried more weight now. "I'm the heir to the Alpha." Silence. Daniel's brows furrowed slightly. Mariana blinked. Kai continued. "And if you allow this, if you trust me with her, Angela won't just be with me." His gaze hardened with certainty. "She'll be my Luna." The word hung in the air. Not just a title, a promise, a claim, a future. Mariana's eyes searched his face, looking for hesitation, for doubt, for anything that felt temporary. But there was nothing. Only certainty. Only commitment. And that scared her just as much as it reassured her. Outside the door, Angela stood frozen. She hadn't meant to overhear, but she had. Every word. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag, her heart racing, not from fear this time, but from something deeper. He didn't hesitate. He didn't hide. He chose her, in front of them. Her parents. Her world. And for the first time, she felt like she wasn't standing between two lives anymore. They were meeting, slowly, carefully, but meeting. Mariana exhaled slowly. Her shoulders dropped just a little, not fully convinced, but not fighting anymore either. "If you hurt her," she said softly, her voice breaking just enough to reveal the truth beneath it, "she won't survive it again." Kai didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. Instead, "I won't," he said. Simple, final. Daniel placed a hand gently on Mariana's shoulder, giving her a small nod. It was enough, reluctant, careful, but real. They stepped back. The door opened. Angela walked in. Kai's gaze found her instantly, like it always did. Everything else blurred. The room, the tension, the past. Just her. Angela's eyes softened the moment she saw him. Really saw him. The bandages, the bruises, the quiet strength he still carried despite it. Her throat tightened. Kai glanced once at her parents, then back at her, and without hesitation, he reached for her hand, held it. Firm, certain, right there, in front of them. Not asking, not hiding, just claiming. Angela's fingers curled into his instinctively, and something settled in her chest, like a promise being sealed again, this time not in silence, but in truth. Mariana looked at them, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't see danger. She saw something else, something she couldn't fight. Her hand lifted slowly, brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen, not from fear, from something softer, something close to acceptance. "Come," Daniel said quietly, guiding her toward the door. Mariana hesitated for a second longer, then nodded, and left. The room fell silent again, but this silence was different, softer, warmer. Angela moved closer, sitting beside Kai carefully. Her eyes didn't leave him, not even for a second. "You're hurt," she whispered. Kai gave a faint smile. "I've had worse." She shook her head slightly, her fingers tightening around his. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't let the tears fall. Not yet. Kai watched her for a moment, then softly, "So did you write anything?" The shift caught her off guard. Angela blinked, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did." Her eyes lit up for a second, just like before. Like writing still lived inside her. like she was still her. Kai's expression softened. What did you write? Angela opened her mouth. The words came first. Then, nothing. Her brows furrowed. She blinked again, tried to reach for it, the lines, the feeling, the rhythm. It had been there, just a while ago, clear, alive. She started. Her fingers tightened in his. I wrote something. I know I did. Kai's expression shifted slightly. Concern. Angela? She shook her head, trying harder now. Closing her eyes, forcing herself to remember. But it slipped, like sand through her fingers. Gone. I can't, her voice broke softly, confusion settling in. I can't remember. Silence, heavy, unfamiliar. Angela looked at him, her eyes wide, not with fear of him, but fear of herself. Kai didn't let go of her hand, didn't react sharply, didn't question. He just held her tighter. It's okay, he said gently. But something in his eyes changed. Because this wasn't normal. And for the first time, love didn't just feel like warmth, it felt like something they might have to fight for. Chapter 13. The beginning of forgetting. Some changes don't arrive loudly. They don't break doors down or demand attention. They slip in quietly and take things away, one piece at a time. At first, Angela didn't notice. No one did. Because forgetting something small, that was normal, right? Everyone forgot things. It started with the keys. Angela stood in the kitchen, frowning at the counter, her fingers tapping lightly against the marble as she looked around. Mom, have you seen my keys? She called out. Mariana glanced up from the dining table. You had them this morning. I know, Angela paused, scanning the room again, her brows pulling together. I kept them right here. Daniel checked the couch. Maybe you dropped them somewhere. Angela nodded, though something about it didn't sit right. She remembered placing them down, clear as day. Or at least, she thought she did. Minutes passed, drawers opened, cushions moved, and then Mariana opened the fridge and froze. Angela, her voice came out slower this time. Angela turned. What? Mariana held up the keys, cold, from inside the fridge. Silence fell. Angela stared at them. A small laugh escaped her, uncertain, almost forced. Okay, that's weird. Daniel chuckled lightly. Happens. Your mind's probably somewhere else. Angela nodded again, but this time she didn't feel convinced because she didn't remember putting them there, not even a little. The second time, it wasn't funny. Angela stood in the office hallway, her heels clicking against the polished floor as she flipped through her bag again, and again, and again. Her breathing grew uneven. No, she whispered under her breath. The presentation. It wasn't there. It had been there. She stayed up all night working on it. She remembered finishing it, saving it, printing it, packing it. She remembered everything. So why? Angela? Her colleague called out from behind. They're waiting for you. Angela turned slowly. I'll be there. But her voice didn't sound like hers anymore. Inside the conference room, the projector screen stayed blank. Her hands trembled slightly as she stood at the front. I think I left the file at home, she said, forcing the words out. Murmurs spread. Disappointment, confusion. Angela nodded, apologizing, stepping back, but her mind wasn't in the room anymore. It was stuck on one question. How? That evening? Kai noticed, not because she told him, but because she didn't. Angela sat on the couch, unusually quiet, her fingers tracing the edge of a notebook that remained unopened. Kai watched her from across the room, his gaze sharp, observant. You okay? He asked. Angela looked up quickly. Too quickly. Yeah, just tired. Kai didn't respond immediately. He stepped closer, crouching slightly in front of her, his eyes searching hers. You forgot something today. It wasn't a question. Angela's lips parted, then closed. She looked away. It was just work stuff. Kai tilted his head slightly, his voice softer now. Angela? She exhaled, and that was enough. The truth slipped out. The presentation, she whispered. I worked on it all night, and then her voice shook. I just couldn't find it. Kai's jaw tightened. Did you save it? Yes. Print it? Yes. Then where is it? I don't know, she said, her voice breaking now. I don't know. Silence stretched between them, heavy, unsettling. Kai reached for her hand, and for the first time, he felt it, not physically, but instinctively. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Kai watched her for a moment longer, something tightening in his chest. Angela, he said quietly. She looked up. He hesitated, just for a second, then asked, Do you remember? 2 nights ago? A pause, her brows pulled together slightly. What about it? Kai stepped closer, his voice softer now. I took you to the mansion. Silence. The terrace, he continued, watching her carefully, under the moon. Her fingers stilled on the notebook. We talked, he said, slower now. You said you weren't scared of me, not of what I am. Angela blinked. Nothing. Kai's throat tightened, but he kept going. I kissed you, he said, almost a whisper now, and I told you I'd never leave you. The room fell completely still. Angela looked at him, not confused, not emotional, just blank, like he was talking about something that had never happened. She started, her voice uncertain. Kai, I don't. She stopped, because there was nothing to hold on to. No memory, no feeling, no trace. I don't remember, she said softly. The words didn't land loudly. They didn't need to. Kai didn't move, didn't speak, because something inside him had already understood. This wasn't stress. This wasn't distraction. This was something else, something far worse. The next morning, he didn't ask. He decided. We're going to see a doctor, he said firmly. Angela looked at him. Kai, it's just stress. No, he cut in, not harsh but certain. It's not. Mariana and Daniel didn't argue, because they had seen it too. The little things, the misplaced items, the pauses, the confusion that lingered longer than it should. They just hadn't said it out loud until now. Hospitals felt different this time, not like before. Before, it was fear of losing someone. Now, it was fear of losing yourself. Angela sat between her parents, her fingers clasped tightly in her lap, while Kai stood near her, his presence solid, grounding. The doctor flipped through reports, his expression careful, too careful. Angela noticed. Kai noticed. Everyone noticed. Finally, the doctor looked up. Angela, I'm going to be very direct. Her heart skipped. You're showing early signs of Alzheimer's. Silence. No one reacted, because no one understood it fast enough. Angela blinked. What does that mean? The doctor's voice softened. It means your memory will gradually be affected. The doctor glanced at Angela, then gently said, Could I speak with you all for a moment? Angela nodded faintly. Kai hesitated, but when Angela gave him a small look, he stepped out with Mariana and Daniel. The hallway felt colder, quieter, more real. The doctor removed his glasses, exhaling slowly. This didn't happen randomly. Kai's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? This kind of memory deterioration can be triggered by emotional trauma, a shock. Mariana's breath hitched. You mean something she went through? The doctor nodded. Something that affected her deeply. Her sense of trust, stability. Mitchell, the silence said it. Daniel ran a hand over his face. So this is because of what happened to her? In part, yes. Mariana's voice trembled. And now? The doctor didn't soften it this time. At first, it's small things. But over time, he paused. She may forget people. Kai stilled. Anyone? Daniel asked. The doctor looked at all three of them. No matter who you are. Parents. His gaze shifted to Kai, or someone she loves. Silence crushed the space. Mariana shook her head slowly. No. What can we do? Daniel asked. Keep her emotionally safe, the doctor said. Create strong memories. Support her. Kai's jaw tightened. I won't let that happen, he said quietly. The doctor didn't argue, because some promises weren't logical. They were necessary. They stepped back into the room. Angela looked up immediately, searching, waiting. Kai walked straight to her, took her hand, held it tighter than before. You're not losing anything, he said softly. Not while I'm here. Angela's lips trembled. Then why can't I remember? She whispered. Kai leaned closer. Then I'll remember for you, he said. Every moment, every word. His hand tightened around hers. I'll bring you back, no matter what it takes. And for the first time, the fear had a name. Chapter 14. Fractures. Success didn't feel the way it used to. Angela sat at her desk, the soft glow of her laptop lighting her face as the final lines of her project stared back at her. Clean, sharp, brilliant. Even now, through the fog, through the gaps, she could still create. That part of her hadn't left yet. Kai stood by the doorway, watching her. There was pride in his eyes, and something else. Fear. You did good, he said quietly. Angela looked up, a small smile forming. I think so too. Kai stepped closer, resting his hand lightly on the back of her chair. Mrs. Daisy's throwing a party tonight, he added. To honor you. Angela blinked. A party? He nodded. Yeah, for the project. For a second, her eyes lit up. Then something flickered. Uncertainty. What if I forget something? She asked softly. Kai's hand moved, almost instinctively, resting over hers. Then I'll remind you, he said, simple, steady, unshaken. Angela nodded. because with him, she believed it. The party was everything Angela expected, and nothing she was ready for. Golden lights spilled across the hall, soft music humming in the background, laughter weaving through conversations like something easy, something normal. Kai walked beside her, close enough that his presence felt constant, protective, grounding. Angela clutched his arm lightly. They stepped inside. People greeted them, smiles, congratulations, voices blending into something overwhelming. And then she saw him. Time didn't slow, it shifted, like reality folded. He stood across the room, dressed in a sharp suit, unchanged. And suddenly, she wasn't here anymore. She was there, back in her past, back to the day that was supposed to be hers. The wedding, the promise. Her fingers slipped from Kai's arm. Her breathing steadied, but in a way that felt wrong, certain, like everything made sense again. She walked straight toward him. Angela, Kai called, but she didn't stop. She stood in front of Mitchell. Her gaze moved to Daisy, elegant, red dress, her hand resting on his arm. Angela frowned slightly, confused, disoriented. "Who is she?" she asked. Then, softer, "You were supposed to marry me." Mitchell stared at her for a second, and then he laughed. Short, dismissive, like she had said something completely unreal. Kai was there instantly, his hand caught her wrist. "Sorry," he said tightly to Mitchell and Daisy, and then he pulled her away. Outside, the cold air hit hard. Angela pulled her hand free from his grip. "Kai, wait," she said, stepping back. "Let me talk to him." Kai froze. She looked past him. "He's my fiancé." The words landed heavy. Wrong, but real, to her. Kai's jaw tightened. Something sharp flickered in his eyes, but he controlled it. "You're not going back," he said, his voice low. "I need to," she insisted. "I don't understand what's happening." Kai stepped forward again, his grip firmer this time. "Angela, we're leaving." She resisted, but only for a moment, because something inside her felt unstable, shifting, uncertain. And before she could argue again, he pulled her to the car. The drive was quieter than silence. Angela stared ahead, her mind trying to catch up with itself. Pieces didn't fit, moments didn't align. Kai's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "What were you trying to do?" he asked finally. Angela swallowed. I couldn't understand anything," she said slowly. Her voice was softer now, lost. "I thought I was in the past." Kai didn't look at her. "I thought," she continued, her brows pulling together, "I was supposed to get married to Mitchell." Silence. "I saw Mrs. Daisy and I got confused," she added. "That's why I asked him." Kai's jaw tightened. But he didn't argue, didn't correct her, didn't say anything about how wrong it sounded. He just exhaled quietly. "Angela," he said after a moment, his tone controlled, softer now, "you need to rest." That was it, no anger, no questions, and somehow that hurt more. Then her breathing changed. Kai glanced at her. "Angela?" No response. Her body slumped slightly. "Angela," and she collapsed. When she woke up, her room felt distant, familiar, but not comforting. Kai sat beside her unmoving, his presence heavy in the quiet, her eyes opened slowly, confusion settling in first, then recognition, but not the right one. "Mitchell?" The word slipped out. Soft, unaware. Kai went still, his jaw clenched instantly. Something dark flashed in his eyes. He moved closer, fast. His hand came up, gripping her chin, firm, controlled, forcing her to look at him. "I am Kai," he said, each word sharp, grounded. "Kai Thornfield." His gaze burned into hers. "The wolf who marked you." A pause. "I am not Mitchell." The room stilled. And then it hit him. This wasn't choice. This wasn't betrayal. This was loss. His grip loosened immediately. He let go. Angela's eyes filled with tears. I didn't," her voice broke. "I didn't mean to." Guilt flooded her face, because she could feel the damage, even if she didn't fully understand it. "I'm sorry." Kai looked away for a second. Just a second. Because that was all he could allow himself. Outside, Mariana and Daniel stood quietly, watching, their daughter slipping further away, and the man who loved her holding on with everything he had. Love wasn't soft anymore. It was something you had to fight for. And sometimes, it didn't fight fair. Chapter 15, What I Choose. Fear had started living in the house. Not loud, not visible. Mariana noticed it in the way Angela paused mid-sentence, like she had lost the thread of her own thoughts. Daniel noticed it in the way she repeated questions, softly, almost apologetically. Kai noticed everything, the hesitation, the confusion, the way her eyes sometimes searched his face like she was trying to place him, and every time, it cut deeper. That evening, Angela sat by the window, staring outside as if the world beyond the glass made more sense than the one inside. Kai stood behind her, quiet, watching. Angela, Mariana's voice broke the silence. Come here, darling. Angela turned slowly, walking toward her. Mariana held her hand, her grip gentle but firm. Then she looked at Kai. There was no hesitation in her eyes now, only a mother's urgency. You need to marry her. The words settled heavily in the room. Daniel exhaled slowly but didn't argue, because he knew time wasn't something they had the luxury of anymore. Kai didn't answer immediately. His gaze shifted to Angela. She stood there, unaware of the weight of the moment, her expression soft, distant, fragile. I will, he said finally, simple, certain, not a promise, a decision. The mansion felt colder than usual, not because of the weather, because of what Kai had walked into. Mariana and Daniel stood beside him, slightly behind, like they already sensed the storm waiting inside. Kai didn't slow down, didn't hesitate. He stepped into the study. Kellen stood near the window, a glass in his hand, his presence as imposing as ever. He didn't turn immediately. I was wondering when you'd come back, he said. Kai didn't respond. Say what you came to say, Kellen added, finally turning. Kai's jaw tightened. I want to marry Angela. Silence. Heavy. Then, Kellen's eyes flicked toward Mariana and Daniel. Assessing. Calculating. And why would I approve that? He asked calmly. Kai didn't look away. She's the one I choose. Kellen let out a quiet, humorless laugh. Choice, he repeated. You speak like a boy, not an alpha. Kai's voice hardened. I'm not asking for permission. Then why are you here? Kellen shot back. Because somewhere, deep down, Kai had hoped, for once. His father would understand, but that hope faded the moment Kellen spoke again. What do you know about this girl? Kellen asked. Mariana stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. She's sick. The room stilled. Kellen's gaze sharpened. What kind of sick? Daniel answered this time. Early Alzheimer's. The word echoed. Cold. Final. Kellen's expression changed. Not to concern, not to empathy, to rejection. I can't accept this. Silence cracked. Kai's fists clenched. Kellen stepped forward now, his voice firm, authoritative. A woman with such a condition cannot be the future Luna. The words landed like a verdict. Kai inhaled sharply. Please, father. The word please didn't suit him, but he said it anyway. For her. Kellen's expression didn't soften. You are the future Alpha, Kai, he said. You think about your people before yourself. Kai stared at him. Long. Unmoving. Then something shifted. A quiet realization. A line being drawn. Is it so? Kai said slowly. Kellen frowned slightly. Kai's voice dropped. Then keep your Alpha throne. A pause. His next words were steady, clear, final. I quit. Silence exploded. Mariana gasped softly. Daniel looked at him, stunned. Kellen's glass hit the table harder than necessary. You will do no such thing, he snapped. Kai didn't move, didn't flinch. I just did. Kellen stepped closer, anger rising now. Do you even understand what you're throwing away? Kai's eyes didn't waver. Yes. Power, authority, legacy. I don't care. The interruption was quiet, but it cut through everything. Thus Kellen's expression darkened. You will regret this. Kai shook his head slightly. No, he said. I would regret losing her. The room went still, because that wasn't rebellion. That was truth. Kai turned. No drama, no hesitation, just done. He walked past them. Mariana and Daniel followed. But Kellen's voice came again, sharper this time. If you walk out, your position will be stripped. Kai didn't stop, didn't look back. You are nothing without your father, Kellen shouted. That made him pause, just for a second. Kai turned his head slightly. Not fully, just enough. We'll see. And then he walked out. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, but heavier too, because freedom came with a cost, and Kai had just paid it. Mariana looked at him, her eyes filled with something between gratitude and disbelief. You did that for her. Kai didn't answer, because he didn't need to. He already had. Somewhere between love and power, Kai had chosen. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he lost anything. Chapter 16, Choosing Us. Days didn't feel like days anymore. They blurred. Mornings folded into evenings, and somewhere in between, life kept moving, even when it felt like it shouldn't. Kai moved into Angela's house without making it a big moment. It just happened. A bag by the door, a shirt left on the chair, his presence slowly filling the spaces between her silence. Mariana didn't question it. Daniel didn't either. Because every time Angela forgot something, every time her eyes searched, uncertain, Kai was there, steady, unmoving. Angela sat at the dining table, a notebook open in front of her. The pen rested between her fingers, unmoving. She stared at the page, blank. I had something, she whispered. Kai stood in the kitchen, watching her. You still do, he said gently. She shook her head. It was there. I could feel it. Her voice trembled, not loud but enough. Kai walked over, pulling the chair beside her. Then don't force it, he said. It'll come back. Angela looked at him, studied his face like she was memorizing it. Do I forget you too? She asked suddenly. The question landed quietly, but it stayed. Kai didn't answer right away. He leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his knees. Not if I don't let you, he said. Angela smiled faintly, because she wanted to believe that. The treatments continued. Doctor visits, medications, therapies, hope, repeated in different forms. But nothing changed. If anything, the pauses grew longer, the confusion deeper, and every time it happened, Mariana's hands shook a little more. Daniel grew quieter, and Kai held on tighter. That afternoon, Kai stepped outside, his phone buzzing in his hand. Michael. He answered. Michael's voice came through, half teasing, half something else. Finally disowned by the alpha. Kai let out a faint breath. Why did you call? A pause. Then, I've got something for you. Kai frowned slightly. My friend owns a multinational company, Michael continued. They're hiring, HR post. Kai didn't speak. Your interview is tomorrow, Michael added. Silence. Then, you serious? Always, Michael replied. Something shifted in Kai's chest. Relief, gratitude, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in days. Thanks, buddy, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet, Michael chuckled. Get the job first. The next morning, Kai stood in front of the mirror. Formal shirt, clean, simple. Different from who he used to be, but not lesser, never that. He adjusted his collar once, then stepped out. The office building stood tall, glass, steel, precision. A different kind of power. Kai walked in, not as an alpha's heir, just a man, looking for a place to start again. The interview was straightforward. Questions, experience, control. He answered calmly, confidently, not because of who he was before, but because of who he had become. And when it ended, the panel exchanged looks. One of them smiled slightly. Welcome aboard, Mr. Thornfield. Kai exhaled. Not loudly, but enough. That evening, the house felt warmer, not because anything had changed, but because something had been built. Kai stepped inside. Angela looked up from the couch. You're back. A small smile, real. Kai nodded. I got the job. Mariana's eyes widened slightly. Daniel gave a quiet nod of approval, and Angela, she smiled, brighter this time. Like for a moment. Nothing was wrong. Kai looked at them, then said it. Simple, direct. I want to marry Angela. Silence. But not heavy this time, just full. Mariana's eyes filled instantly. Daniel exhaled, a quiet relief settling into his shoulders. In a week, Kai added. No hesitation. No doubt. Angela blinked. A week? Kai looked at her, steady, certain. Yeah. Her lips parted slightly. Then she nodded. Because even if she forgot everything else, this feeling, she still recognized it. The house changed after that. Soft chaos. Fabric swatches on the table. Phone calls. Lists being written and rewritten. Mariana moving from one room to another, her energy restless but hopeful. Daniel handling the quiet details. And Angela, standing in the middle of it all, trying to hold on to each moment, even as they slipped. Kai watched her through it all, every smile, every pause, every time she forgot what she was doing mid-step. He didn't stop her, didn't correct her immediately. He just stayed close, ready, always. That night, Angela stood by the mirror, holding a piece of fabric against herself. Kai, she called softly. He walked in. Yeah? She turned. How do I look? Kai didn't answer right away. Because for a moment, he wasn't looking at the dress. He was looking at her, and everything he was about to fight for. Perfect, he said. Angela smiled, soft, unaware of the storm ahead. And for now, that was enough. Chapter 17, The Day She Left. The house had never felt this alive. Voices overlapped, footsteps echoed, laughter moved from room to room like something bright and fragile. For a moment, it felt like everything was right. Kai stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the cuffs of his suit. Black, sharp, clean, different from the man he used to be. But this version, this one had chosen. Michael stood behind him, watching quietly for a second before stepping forward. Didn't think I'd see this day, he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Kai huffed lightly. What, me getting married? Yeah, Michael said, lifting the coat and settling it over Kai's shoulders. You choosing something over power. He adjusted the collar carefully, not rushed, not casual, like the moment mattered. You look like a man who finally knows what he wants, Michael added. Kai met his reflection. For once, there was no conflict in his eyes. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. Michael's hand lingered on his shoulder for a second. Then don't lose it, he murmured. Kai didn't respond. Because he didn't plan to. Upstairs, Mariana stood behind Angela, carefully fixing the last pin into her hair. Angela sat still, her reflection staring back at her from the mirror. White suited her, soft, bright, almost unreal. You look beautiful, Mariana whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Angela smiled. A real one. Thank you, Mom. Daniel stood a little distance away, his hands folded, watching quietly. His little girl, ready to leave, ready to begin something new. Angela's fingers lightly touched the edge of her dress. Something moved inside her. A flicker. A pull. Something she couldn't explain. For a second, her smile faded. Are you okay? Mariana asked softly. Angela blinked, then nodded. Yeah, I'm fine. But her eyes lingered on her own reflection a moment longer, like she was trying to recognize herself. The evening unfolded in gold. Lights shimmered across the hall. Guests filled the space with easy laughter, soft conversations, clinking glasses. Some moved toward the food. Some gathered in corners. Some simply watched, waiting. Mariana and Daniel stood near the entrance, welcoming each guest with practiced warmth, though their eyes kept drifting toward the staircase, toward her. In the center of the hall, Kai stood waiting. The ring rested in his palm, small, simple, but it felt heavier than anything he had ever held. Michael stood beside him, arms crossed, scanning the room. A few of Kai's loyal pack members had arrived, silent, observant, respectful. This wasn't just a wedding, it was something more. A choice. A shift. It's time, someone said softly. Kai's gaze lifted toward the staircase, nothing. Mariana inhaled slowly. I'll bring the bride, she said, and then she turned, walking toward the stairs. Time stretched. Not long. Just enough to feel it. Kai shifted slightly, his fingers tightening around the ring. Michael glanced at him. She'll be here, he said. Kai nodded, but something in his chest felt off. Minutes passed. Longer now. Daniel frowned. They're taking too long, he muttered. I'll check. He moved toward the stairs. The music softened, the conversations dulled. Something changed in the air, subtle, unspoken, but felt. And then they came down. Mariana, Daniel, slowly, too slowly. And Angela was not with them. Kai's chest tightened. His gaze dropped to their hands, a piece of paper, folded, trembling. Where is Angela, he asked. No one answered. Mariana couldn't look at him. Her hand shook as she stepped forward and placed the note in his hand. Kai frowned slightly, unfolded it, read, I am leaving. I cannot ruin the man's life whom I love. I am sorry, Kai. The world didn't shatter, it just stopped. Kai stared at the paper. Once, twice. Like if he read it enough times, it would change. It didn't. His fingers loosened. The note slipped slightly. His knees gave out, and he fell. Not loudly, not dramatically, just collapsed. Michael caught him before he hit the ground completely. Hey, he said, steadying him. But Kai wasn't hearing him. His eyes were fixed, empty. No, he whispered, barely a sound. She wouldn't, but she had. Michael's grip tightened, his voice hardened. Everyone, spread out, he ordered sharply. Find her. The pack moved instantly. No hesitation, no questions. Mariana broke down quietly, Daniel holding her as they turned to leave. We'll find her, Daniel said, though his voice didn't carry certainty. Only hope. Fragile. Kai stood up slowly, like his body didn't belong to him anymore. Michael looked at him. You're not staying here. It wasn't a question. Kai nodded once, and then they ran. The city blurred. Streetlights, voices, empty roads, every place she had ever been, every corner she had ever touched. They searched, everywhere, calling her name, checking, asking, running. Time didn't exist anymore. Only one question, where are you? Hours passed, then more, but the answer didn't come, because Angela was gone. And for the first time, Kai had nothing to fight, nothing to hold, nothing to protect, only silence. Chapter 18, Where Love Waits. A year didn't heal everything. It didn't erase the night she left. It didn't silence the questions. It didn't bring her back. But it changed him. Kai no longer waited at doors. He no longer expected footsteps behind him. He learned how to live with the absence. He never went back to the mansion. Not once. Not even when the silence there probably waited for him. Because some doors, once closed, stay closed. Not out of pride, out of self-respect. He worked. Day after day. The office became routine. Numbers, meetings, decisions. A life that moved forward, even when a part of him stayed behind. People respected him. Some admired him. But no one knew that every night before sleep took over, he still searched for her. In memories. In silence. In the spaces where she used to exist. That evening, his phone rang. Michael. Kai glanced at the screen, already tired. Yeah, he answered, leaning back in his chair. On the other end, wind, noise, excitement. Kai? Michael's voice came through, uneven but sharp. I think I see her. Kai closed his eyes. A faint, tired smile touched his lips. Stop, Mickey, he muttered. I'm at the office. I'm not joking. The tone changed. Completely. Kai's eyes opened. There's a woman here, Michael continued, with a baby. Silence. Something in Kai's chest shifted. Slow. Dangerous. The woman, Michael breathed out, it's Angela. Everything stopped. Not gradually. Not softly. Completely. Kai stood up instantly. Where are you? He asked. Argentina. Kai didn't hesitate. I'm leaving. The flight felt longer than it was. Time stretched. Memories filled the silence. Her smile, her voice. The way she used to look at him like she saw something worth staying for. And the way she left without letting him stop her. When he landed, Michael was already there, waiting. Kai stepped out, scanning the space like he expected her to appear out of nowhere. Where is she? He asked immediately. Michael didn't answer right away. His expression was careful. She didn't recognize me, he said finally. Kai stilled. I talked to her, Michael continued. She was polite, distant. A pause. I don't think she'll recognize you either. The words didn't break him, because somewhere he already knew. Where is she? Kai asked again. Michael nodded toward the car. She works at a church. Not far from here. Kai didn't wait. He took the keys. The sky was already heavy, clouds gathering, wind picking up. By the time Kai reached, it had started raining. Not light, not gentle, heavy, relentless. Just like that night. The church stood quiet in the distance, old, still, unmoved by time. Kai slowed the car, and then he saw her, standing near the gate, half sheltered under the small extension of the roof, a baby in her arms. Angela. For a second, he forgot how to breathe. She looked the same, and not softer, quieter, like life had reshaped her into something more fragile. The baby shifted slightly in her arms, small, wrapped, safe. Kai's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His chest rose slowly. He knew. He didn't need proof. He just knew. He stepped out of the car. Rain hit him instantly. Cold. Sharp. But he didn't feel it. Not really. His eyes stayed on her. Every step he took, careful, measured, like he was walking toward something that might disappear if he moved too fast. Angela adjusted the baby slightly, stepping one foot out toward the rain, then pulling it back again, hesitating, waiting. Kai stopped in front of her. Close enough now. Close enough to see her clearly. Her eyes lifted, met his. No recognition, just quiet confusion, and something distant. His gaze dropped briefly to the baby. A boy. Small. Wrapped in soft blue fabric. Kai exhaled slowly, holding everything inside, every emotion, every question, every piece of himself that wanted to break. He didn't let it. How long will you wait here? He asked softly. His voice steady, controlled. The rain won't stop. Angela looked at him, studied his face, like she was trying to place something that wasn't there anymore. Kai swallowed, then added gently, Come, I'll drop you home. She didn't answer, didn't move. The rain filled the silence between them. He stepped slightly closer, not enough to scare her, just enough to be present. Come on, he said quietly. I'll drop you home safely. Angela hesitated. Her eyes flickered once toward the road, then back at him. A small sigh escaped her, and finally, she nodded. Kai opened the car door, waited. Angela stepped in carefully, adjusting the baby in her arms. Kai closed the door gently, walked around, got in. The engine started, the rain continued, and for a moment, nothing was said. Kai glanced at her once, then back at the road, his hands steady on the wheel, his heart anything but. She didn't know him, didn't remember him, didn't remember them, but she was there, alive, safe, close, and maybe that was enough, for now. The car moved forward, cutting through the rain, through time, through everything they had lost, and everything they still had left. Because love didn't always need to be remembered. Sometimes it just needed to stay. Image prompt 1, Rain Church scene. Heavy